All right, this is presentation 3 of chapter 1, Americans and Their Values. Again, this is a 2-week class. This is the third presentation. This is the last one we'll do on chapter 1. We'll probably be doing about 4, maybe even 5 of these for some chapters that have really dense information. When you talk about American political culture and what is political culture, it's basically just the mix of basic beliefs and history and the importance of certain kinds of narratives. In American political culture, there are 3 basic values that tend to be foremost, and that is liberty, equality, and justice. These are fundamental. Most political cultures value these things, but maybe in different ways and manifest in different ways. The Declaration of Independence, basically set forth this idea that we're all human beings and we're all endowed with inalienable rights, including the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The people that wrote that also clearly accepted that slavery was something that they were okay with. Liberty meant freedom to them and commitment to limited government, and that there were certain things that government could not do. And overarching all of that, Americans universally, and more so in the past perhaps than in the present, have expressed a strong commitment to laissez-faire capitalism, which means basically private ownership of property and minimal government intervention in economic relationships. So equality basically means, from an American perspective, it means treating people fairly. While again, the Declaration of Independence clearly stated that all men are created equal, the ideal of equality itself has received somewhat less consideration. While most Americans support the idea of equality of opportunity, few Americans express support for the idea of equality of outcome. The idea, for example, of a basic income that everyone would be entitled to. That is something that a lot of Americans have a great deal of difficulty accepting. On the other hand, again, most people think that people should have a level playing field and they should have the same kinds of opportunities to pursue their life goals and have opportunities to succeed. So the gradual expansion of legal guarantees of equality have created an obligation for government to intervene in ways that have oftentimes proven controversial. And again, it gets back to the idea, for example, among blacks of reparations. That has been a deeply controversial issue. Many whites and many conservatives are profoundly opposed to the notion of reparations. Many blacks would argue that is really the only way to right the past wrongs of sustained discrimination that have systemically denied blacks and many other minorities, equal rights and equal opportunity. Justice is an unfinished project. Justice itself involves the idea of fairness and how rewards and punishments are delivered, especially by government and by the courts, but also by society in general. While the ideal of justice is broadly supported, the practice of justice is very complicated. Fairness means that legal and political decisions are made in an impartial manner. And again, impartiality means that a judge doesn't put his thumb on the scale on one side or the other. And again, that basic value is increasingly coming under contest. Social justice, again, argues that there are greater levels of equality in the allocation of wealth and opportunities and privileges within society, and that certain people, especially women and many minorities, have been systemically denied social justice. And again, that is one of those very controversial things that state legislatures are increasingly attempting to legislate and silence people, which is regrettable. How to debate responsibly. April Lawson, director of debates for Better Angels, which is a nonprofit organization that works with individuals across the ideological spectrum to combat partisan polarization and restore respectful dialogue among Americans, offers the following rules. The first thing, assume good faith. Assume that the other side, wants to engage with you in a genuine manner. Say what you actually believe. Trying to be, deceptive is a killer for fair debate. Setting the tone, saying what you mean, restating your own opinion. Trying to say, let me see if I understand you correctly, and then, fairly, characterizing their arguments. In your response, accepting that you could be wrong is an important way of signaling that you're open to dialogue. Knowing you have to be the bigger person. Sometimes people start launching attacks. If you respond in kind, you are simply, you're participating in the problem. And then finally, realize you have agency. If you realize the person is not actually debating in good faith, you have the power to walk away. What Americans think about governments from the founding. Americans have been suspicious of politics and especially of politicians. The Great Depression was a transformative event and significantly increased Americans' trust in government. Over time, that trust has sort of eroded. Certainly, there have been government actions that have prevented terrible events. The subprime mortgage meltdown, government action prevented a reoccurrence of the Great Depression type conditions. Likewise, with the COVID-19 pandemic, public health measures saved millions of lives. Nevertheless, Americans continue to have express profound mistrust in government. So again, since the early 1960s, Americans' trust in government has seriously eroded. Trust at the state and local level has remained relatively high because state and local governments do relatively narrow ranges of things that people largely agree with. Trust in government also varies considerably among different groups of Americans. So interestingly, actually, blacks and Latinos oftentimes evince their greatest trust because they need government in order to have more equality of opportunity. The question, does it matter if Americans trust their government? It matters if we care about democracy. Democracy requires a certain amount of mutual trust, and above all, trust in the people that we elect to represent us. And if we don't have that trust, and again, Reagan once said, trust but verify. It's fine to be skeptical of people, but to be innately mistrustful is a pathway that is basically destructive of democracy. So what do you think? Introductions work to try and contextualize the subject. We need to learn the basic nuts and bolts of American government, including the various aspects of Americans' principles and ideals. Many Americans, again, support the values of liberty, equality, and justice. But again, how those values are converted into practice is increasingly sparking controversy. Rapid demographic changes, both from immigration and intergenerational transitions, have provoked a great deal of political conflict. Again, those of us who were raised before the internet, have a much different perspective on things than those of you who, grew up with cell phones in your hands. So at the start of this presentation or these presentations, we learned about, how, Hyatt and Cole Stevens, the two high school students who were denied unemployment benefits but fought to change the system. That's an important insight, that if you don't like something, if you see it and don't like it, you have the ability to go and make changes, and that's important. So some basic questions, given the values you bring to this course, what do you think of the unemployment benefits case at the start of the presentation? If you were to contact an elected official about that issue, which American values would you want to emphasize? In what ways does the diversity of the American people represent a strength or you know, a challenge to America as a whole? How important do you think participation, knowledge, and efficacy are for the functioning of American democracy? What would you prefer to see, you know, to be more engaged in government? How do you imagine Hyatt and Cole would answer these questions? How many of you have friends and family or fellow students who are engaged in politics? You know, why are you not interested in politics? These are important questions. And I want to conclude on this idea of efficacy, which basically means that you believe that your efforts matter. When you have high efficacy, you have high agency. When you have low efficacy, you are less likely to do anything. You're less likely to even try. And it's important to keep in mind that politics is about giving people that opportunity and seeing that they have value. So as we move on, tomorrow we're going to move on to the founding and the Constitution. So make sure you get your reading done so that we're in a good position to master this material.